This session is going to be looking at how African music is reshaping the European cultural landscape. And it's a panel, and I'm very excited to bring up our experts and panelists here in a moment. Let me just give a quick introduction to who we have on stage here. The moderator is Mariella Kipulu. Mariella is an event coordinator. She's a promoter and project manager, actually working here for Most Wanted Music. She's born in Congo, raised in Italy, and is currently based in Berlin. Next up, we also have Pamela, aka DJ Pam Bam, who is a Berlin-based freelance music consultant who builds bridges between artists from the continent of Africa and Germany. She is a DJ, the founder of Afro Pop, which is a community platform for contemporary Afro pop culture in Germany, and she's also an expert in all things Afro-German. Also, we have Mensa with us. Mensa is a producer, he's a lead singer, performer, he's a 2-time MOBO-nominated British Ghanaian musician, and he has shared the stages with musicians like Damon Albarn, Flea from Red Hot Chili Peppers, Femi Kuti. He's also produced for Manifest and Neka, and he's known as somewhat of a pioneer of Afrobeats in Ghana. So I'm really thrilled for this exciting panel on how African music is reshaping the European cultural landscape, and I want you all to give it up for these excellent people. Let's go.
Hello, everyone. First of all, thank you for being here with us. I will just shortly leave some time for the two of them to introduce themselves so that they can say a few words about what they do and who they are. So we start with you, please.
Hi, my name is Mensa from Ghana, and one half of the gospel porn group called Fucking Boys. And currently here to share some experiences about what I've learned and what I've had to unlearn in my career. Just a little bit about Fucking Boys. My partner, one of the Kipulu, some of you might know, might not know. We started in Ghana, and the name Fucking Boys just came up as us being tired of being or attempting to be like conscious MCs or conscious musicians, because us growing up being rebellious, the last thing we wanted to hear was somebody advising us. So we decided to actually make fun of everything and anything as a form of therapy. If you live in an environment sometimes in some parts of, of Africa where it's like corruption and, just everything's coming at you, you need to find a way to find therapy. And so our humor and satire and comedy is our way of therapy and sharing that with our audience. And that's what Fucking Boys is.
Thank you very much. So now you, Pamela, maybe you can say a couple of words about you and what you do.
Yes, so hello. Thanks for having us. Yes, my name is Pamela. I'm on the one hand, freelance music consultant. I have been working the past 3 years as an A&R for Afroforce One. Afroforce One is the new founded label of Universal Music that concentrates on the African music market. We are like the project or the label signs African artists for the European continent or for the European market, focusing more on German-speaking countries, but it can be everywhere. And for that project, I'm the A&R for the past 3 years. And on the other side, I have my own platform, which she already said, it's called Afro Pop. I started actually with the African Food Festival here in Berlin in 2016. Now on my own platform, I thought there was time for a different representation of African culture, African music, with Afro Pop, which is a platform, community platform, but also festival which takes place every year, Last year I was in Hamburg and in Cologne. This year I've been in Cologne. I also sometimes do organize talks around African music, African culture. I did talk about the potential of Afropop music in Berlin at Berghain Kantine. So yeah, I mean, I'm trying to spread the energy that we have currently on the continent here, because by living there I was born here, lived in the past 4 years, 2 years in Ghana, and I had the feeling that the presentation, all the things that we see in the media are not really representing the current energy on the continent. And so yeah, that's why I actually came back and thought we need to change something. It was also for me very important to, very often we are saying things are going wrong, but I had the feeling that we also have to change it ourselves. And yeah.
Thank you very much. Okay, so before we start, I would like just to make a short introduction and explain, first of all, a big difference. You hear many times talking about Afrobeats, but many people actually mix this with Afrobeat. So I just need to explain the difference between the two terms. And when you talk about Afrobeat, like, we are directly referring to Fela Kuti. And this is really the reference as far as Afrobeat concerned. When we talk nowadays about Afrobeats, there is not only one genre included, meaning that we talk about beats coming from Africa as a continent. So there is Afro-pop, there is Afro-hip-hop, there is...
No, that's actually not true. Sorry. Afro-pop is the umbrella term for contemporary African pop music, popular music. So Afro-pop is the term. Afrobeats is more specific to West Africa, especially Ghana, Nigeria.
I was about to get there, because we are going to talk about, like, specifically like West Africa today. We don't have anyone, like, talking about, like, everything, so we are going to focus more on West Africa. That's why we're going to use the term Afrobeats. This is what I was going to say. But thank you very much. Like, that's why you're the expert, and that's why you're here. So, no,
yeah, I feel
okay,
like all
good.
these words are, like, everywhere, and it's so important to, tell people that what the terms actually are. We don't mix hip hop with pop music in Germany. We know that's hip hop, that's pop music.
That's why I
it's
say
not about you.
In the common way of using Afrobeats, many people sometimes get confused and they don't understand. That's why I say we are going to use Afrobeats, because we are going to talk mostly about music from West Africa. You can add something.
I usually use the term Afropop, to be honest.
Okay, let's use Afropop.
For me, Afropop
it's
is the term, and then I can go specifically to the different regions, because Afrobeats, Nigeria also has not only Afrobeats, there's Juju, there is,
of course.
And that's also what we're currently hearing. So,
yeah. And my next point was just to explain that actually what we are going to talk about is just a small part, because to discuss it really deeply, we actually would need a whole conference only for this, because we should actually discern every influence and every direction of it. So we don't really have this space right now. So we are just trying to open the topic and just talk about it. And therefore, we have somehow to find a way to talk about it without... We cannot really go deep in details of every kind of direction. But what you're saying, of course, is very important. I have nothing to say against it. I just wanted to explain the difference with Afrobeat and Afrobeats. But yeah, you explain it. You can explain it better than me, for sure. Okay. So let's move forward, and I would like to know from you guys, if you think and how you think, like, the music from the continent, and we talk about specifically from West Africa, this new wave coming now from musicians and so on, how you think it's inspiring and influencing also the musical landscape here in Europe, because we are many times subjected to images coming mostly maybe from mainstream and so on. And Europe, I would really like to know from you something about the European landscape. We can start with you, maybe?
Right. Without sounding redundant, we may have to look at the historical impact of music from Africa on the cultural landscape in Europe. So when you say modern music, I mean, modern just means what's happening now. And so in the 60s, what was happening was modern. And when you look at the influence of, if you want to do that with Fela Kuti, Ebo Taylor, all these producers and so on and so forth, and how that influenced music in Europe and in the rest of the diaspora, North America. I mean, this is something that's always been happening with blues music, jazz music, R&B music.
Blues music. Blues is very much influenced also by African music.
This is what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So if you, yeah, from from Mali and so on and so forth. So I think this is just a cycle. But the significant thing what's happening now is that, still doing a bit of history, like for me when I was growing up, and my brothers growing up in England, I mean, I grew up more in Ghana, but my brothers growing up in England, where we would say first generation British Ghanaians. And so they in a position where they weren't actually able to grasp their identity. So you're Ghanaian, but when you go out in the streets, they make fun of you, African boo-boo and so on and so forth, and you're just like, okay, what do I do? Do I assimilate with Caribbeans? And then, if people ask me, I'm from Jamaica and so on and so forth, because at that time it was cool to be Jamaican and Caribbean, and reggae music and so on and so forth was what was happening. Now what we have is a second generation of Africans in Europe who have parents who speak the language, who have parents who have held on to the cultures and to the language, the food, the music, and all the vibrance that comes from the continent, and are embracing that and sharing that with their communities and society and schools and so on and so forth. And so actually what's interesting is that not only do we have African music coming from the continent, but actually young boys and girls born and raised in Europe propagating this culture and really like going back to the language, going back to the fabrics, to the food, to the lingua, to everything. And obviously with the internet, you don't need the middleman, or you don't need record labels, or you don't need TV stations or whatever to be able to propagate this effectively. And so what we're seeing as a wave is this is something crazy, like, wow, African music is, as much as I hate the word African music, it's just because media is changing a little bit. But this is something that's always been happening, at least for the last 80 years, where music from the continent or culture from the continent has always influenced the European landscape.
Yeah, this brings me actually to the next point, in which...
Can I say something too?
Of course you can say something.
Perfect. Yes, first of all, that's what I wanted to say as well, that African music has been influencing music outside of Africa, Western music, like for such a long time, since like there's been music. And actually I have one video, and then I wanted to talk specifically to the influence, maybe also on the German market. Yeah, that's actually the term that we were that's Burna Boy. He was invited to Trevor Noah, and he was actually explaining to the American audience what he calls it Afrofusion, what it is, and I thought that's a pretty nice way to say what it actually is. And then maybe more specifically, like influences, direct influences that we have had here in Germany. I have 2 songs. The original, you could say, from France.
So maybe, yeah, you can explain us who this was. And
I mean, a lot of here from Germany. So it's MHD is the original from France. We could say, is the founder of Afro Trap, and then we had in 2000, I think it was end of 2017, Raf Kamora and Bounce MC had, like, by that time, one of the biggest streamed songs in Germany, M19, which was really much influenced by the beat. I mean, actually, it was copied, the MHD sound. So that's an example, for example, in Germany where we could see how it has been influenced. And what I also think it's interesting, I mean, it's also the influence of African music, the contemporary African music is in countries different in Europe. I mean, when we look at the British or at the Dutch, as the Netherlands, or French market, it is very true that like the diaspora, the African diaspora itself is at the forefront of the movement. You know, you see, like MHD has Malian and I don't know, background, and in England, Jay Haas has a Ghanaian background. But I think in Germany it's still a little bit different, and the dimension is different. In Germany, you can hear the influence of Afro-pop music in the music, but when you look at the people who are carrying it to the main stage, you could say it's not people from, not Afro-German people. It is, they are Germans, and I think it has an influence, but the influence and the impact is different in different countries, and I think it's super important to look at the countries.
Yeah, we have the chance here to have someone from England and someone from Germany, so this will be like the main examples we can focus on at the moment.
If you don't mind me just interjecting a little bit, you know, at the risk of getting stuck on this labeling and what's what and what's not, you know, for me, coming from the background as a producer, when I hear music, like what you're hearing, sometimes I'm hearing something completely different, because if these two songs were rearranged slightly different, it could be a hip-hop song, or it could be just a pop song. Now, the moment, because we are such, for lack of a better word, because it's a minority genre, we're doing ourselves a big injustice every time we start creating even smaller clusters of the genres. Because, to be honest with you, I hate this, Afro that, Afro that. Because Afro-pop music then means all pop music. If you're talking about R&B music, which has African Americans, if you're talking about rap music, which has African Americans, or whatever it is, it's African origins. If we're talking about origins of things, rap music, I can take you back to the Ashanti tribe, where we were rapping and rhyming over drums. But that's now pop music. So the moment we start breaking things into smaller clusters, the harder it is for us to move as a stronger force to really establish ourselves in this already fucked up industry. Do you see what I mean? So it's tough for me, do you see what I'm saying? And we need to come in our numbers. We really need to come in our numbers. So one thing that we also forget is that, you know, musicians are into, and artists are into branding so that they can stand out. So if somebody comes and says, well, I make Afro trap or I make Afro fusion, all they're doing is separating themselves so that when you go out looking for that sound, you're finding them. But if we want to come as a big African force, then I don't care what we call it. I mean, we can call it Afro beats or whatever it is, but we need to find already that unity in whatever it is, like an umbrella thing, and then start moving on. Because all these artists who want to call themselves Afro trap and so on and so forth, when you go on Spotify, they are under the Afro beats genre. Finished.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately,
Unfortunately, do you see what I mean? So, for me, I find like Afro pop a little bit redundant, because rap music is Afro pop. R&B music is Afro pop. Popular gospel music is Afro pop, because those elements are inside of our African music, which whatever that is. Because you listen to anything that's on radio and tell me it doesn't have drums and percussions that come from the continent. Do you see what I'm saying? So this is, for me, it's really difficult. And to be honest with you, this is something that I also have to deal with, even within my own band. Like, how are we branding ourselves so we're just gospel porn? You know? So, so it's tough. It's tough for me, because already we're not moving in a force. We already have to deal with maneuvering our way within the industry, owning our material, owning our wealth, owning our contribution, owning what we're contributing on free, giving free content to all these platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Black Twitter, Black Instagram, Black YouTube, all that stuff. It's like we're already giving so much. You know what I mean? So I think we need to kind of try and amalgamate things and just be able to really move on to the next thing, to be honest with you. That's, it's an issue for me, sorry.
No, this is very important. This is actually why it's important that people like you actually come on a stage and say what they have to say from the point of view of an artist and also producer. Not only the industry, because we all know that the industry sometimes needs label, hashtags, in order to create marketing strategies. So what you're saying is basically like we should get free from this and continue creating like great music. So in this spirit, I would like to know from you, from both of you, like if you have the feeling that technology and the fact that we actually have access to social media and other ways of communicating, if this could contribute in doing this, like everyone actually potentially could label themselves the way they want to without expecting this, coming from the outside, but be the people to actually, tell your own story and so on. So how do you think this contributed and how do you think this could be used in order to, do what you're saying, like getting free from this label and just tell our own stories and just create great music and promote our great music?
I'm not a technology expert,
right.
but I would say something to it.
So in my experience with my own material and all the stuff that I've been involved with, I feel like, especially for fucking boys, if we didn't have social media, mobile phones, and the internet, there would be no place for us. Because for 10 years, labels and managers and bookers and festivals would say to us, we don't know what to do with your music. We're not sure if it's entertaining or if it's political or if it's derogatory or it's a bit too, you know what I mean? So we had to really take charge of our business or of our art and how we were going to put it out there. So in Ghana, almost everybody has, or in Africa now, I think almost everybody has at least 1 or 2 phones. Data is the most important thing to every young person on the continent. So using mediums like YouTube, uploading your own videos, now we have Twitter, we have Instagram, we have Patreon, we have all these other platforms where you can take charge of what you're putting out there. I'm sure this information is redundant, but it's really crucial for us because not having access to the infrastructures, especially on the continent, distribution companies, 99% of the artists I know in Ghana don't even know what royalties are. If you're happy, you're thankful if the radio is playing your music, and you pay the radio to play your music. That's another conversation altogether. So we're like, well, the radio is not going to play our music because we've made a song called "Thank God We're Not a Nigerians." And so the Nigerians are looking for us, and Ghana says that if they play the music, we're going to cause a war between Ghana and Nigeria. But in the same strength, when we go to Nigeria and we don't perform the song, the Nigerians are not going to allow us to get off the stage. So the song, I digress a little bit, but I'm trying to get at something here. The song actually is a reverse way of saying we're envious of Nigeria as Ghanaians. And through social media and just interacting with the audiences, the people who come out to hear what we have to say, to hear our foolishness, our jokes, and our making fun of ourselves and the government, of religion, of homophobia, of everything. People get to understand what we're actually about, and this would never happen if we had to wait for a big label or a big management company to lead us through this journey. So social media and the internet is, I think, every musician or every artist's first tool before even anything else, and having an understanding for how that can make a good impact on your work.
Thank you very much. And yeah, maybe you want to add something.
I mean,
to
not
it?
from an artist point of view, but just as a person that grew up here, who was born here. I mean, for a very long time, I didn't see black people making music or black people on TV in general. So the only thing that shaped because for a long time I also didn't go back to Ghana when I was young. The only information or news that formed my picture of Africa was what I saw on the little bit of TV or news article that you got. And what you saw was, starving people, war, like conflict. So I then went back and I stayed for a long time. But for many other people who could really follow my journey in Ghana, I then stayed there for 3 years, like 1 year and then 2 years. Like, people were so surprised. It started for me with Facebook. So when I started to DJ in Ghana and people saw in Berlin that I was DJing, and I got all these messages, this is how it looks. So it's not only that not only Africans got a different view or a different picture of what Africa actually is, but also my just regular German friends, or I could see that all the things that you only hear on TV, that there's more to it than just that one picture that is shown to you. So for us, just also to imagine beyond what you hear on TV, what we are, who we are. What kind of music do we have? Also, being in contact, in touch with my music, this allows also social media or Spotify, all these platforms, because back in the days you had to maybe travel there and see what kind of music is out there. But now you can just, back in the days I never listened to kind of African music. Only my family listened to high life, and now that's what I listen to every day because I have access through all these tools and it has a connection, You're in a bad mood and you put on some great Shatta Wale song or Mensa song, and then you just dance and you're beamed back to your roots. So it has changed so much for us, and yeah.
Thank you very much. If I can go shortly back to the labeling topic, like you were saying, we always put a label on us. And you, Pamela, you work in the industry, so you also see the background from it. And I would like to tell you, what would you suggest artists, to do? Sometimes I work with some artists and we have to define what they do. And so you have 1,000 words, you have to write after this, after that, because to get booked or something, to have a profile, people just need to put you in a box, because it's just easier. So what would you suggest from your point of view?
Sometimes boxes are also good.
Useful, let's say.
Because I think when I started DJing in 2013, I played Afro beats, Afro pop music. I got gigs because there was this label Afro Pop, Afro Beats, and people asked me specifically can you please come to us and play that? Back in the days, I remember everybody said can you please play African music? And now, and then I came back in 2013, and I played at really mainstream parties here in Berlin, and back in the days, people didn't know so many songs, people didn't know the term. I'm on your page, but I think I'm happy that people now not just call it, please play African music, but I'm happy that people come to me and say, can you please play Afropop, or can you play that Nigerian stuff, or give me names, can you play Burna Boy? And that's from 2016 to 2019 now. There is a change completely. When I was DJing back in the days, no one knew any song that I played. Yeah. And now when I play music, people just know. And I'm not only talking about people who look like me, but just Berliners just know. And then, last time they screamed at me, they saw a black girl comes out, please play some Afropop. So yeah. It has its pros and it has its negative sides. Yeah. I don't know what this... the perfect way to...
Just to clarify, I'm not against boxes. What I'm saying is we have to come to an agreement find something and let's all move in that, you know what I mean? Because, yeah, okay, if you want to call it Afro beats or Afro pop, fair enough, that's fine. And then let's just kind of move on to the next thing in a sense. And a lot of people are sentimental about, you know, the Afro beats thing, because it's almost like it's a name that's been coined up without much consideration. It's like when you heard Afrobeat in the 70s, you knew there was rebellion, there was revolution, there was consciousness because of what Fela stood for, you know. And then it's like when you listen to Afrobeats now, it's like, you know, okay, well, they're just dancing is my baby this and my, you know, my you know, my Mercedes this or whatever and that and so on and so forth, you know. And so people are a bit sensitive about the name Afrobeats. I get it. And also because, you know, to be from the continent is like even Ghana alone has 46 languages. And, you know, different sounds and different intonations and different approaches to things. So, you know, you don't want to put everybody, you can't put us in one box. But as a movement, we have to move. As a movement, we have to have a united something, you know what I mean? Because there's power in numbers, I feel. And also, you know, once you start putting certain labels and things like, okay, well, you know, this is Afro pop. For me, as somebody who's always finding problems with things, I think, okay, wait, hold on. Beyonce just released a complete album of Afrobeats music that went straight into the charts. Why does it have to be Afro pop? It's just pop music. Do you see what I'm saying? Okay. And everybody's cashing in on it except for us.
I have no problem with that.
Do you see what I mean? So then when I start thinking about these things, and it's like, okay, well, what are we going to do to, you know, to answer your question, which was how are we going to, I think we just need to collaborate. As musicians, we need to collaborate. And not only as musicians with musicians, but managements and artists and designers and clothes makers and all that stuff.
Labels.
It's like we just need to just work together and, you know, move into architecture, work with the guys from Cuba, work with, you know, the Berliners and, you know, the electronic music scene and so on and so forth. Just keep it growing, really. I think that's just collaboration is where the power is. I mean, and know the business.
Yeah, I mean, with the terms, like, that's where I had no really, I mean, I think sometimes giving it a name is important, whatever name, umbrella name it is. Right. For me, it's pop, African pop music is just, it's popular music. And it can be in every country different, you know, right. Because South Africa has nothing. If you tell them Afrobeats, and they're like, what is that? They have nothing in common with Afrobeats. Right. So for me, it's just African popular music. But in general, too, like how the way could be forward, for me, it's all about collaborations. It's, and then across nations, backgrounds, music styles, because I think that's how we can actually push our music much forward. And then not only, like, for example, when we have, it's now with my Universal project, it is super important that not only the artist is then African, like that the team, like the A&R, the head of the label has also African background. I think it's important that also African are part in this. So and that the producers, I would have loved that maybe Raf Camora, you know, saw, oh, that's a cool beat, and would invite people who do this every day, who have the culture, invite them to, you know, collaborate and do a beat together, you know. I think it's, yeah, what I want to say is just, yeah, collaborations on every level brings us forward.
Okay, thank you very much. We don't have much time left, so I will have kind of to start taking some questions if someone has something to ask.
Hello. All right, my name is Batilla. I'm an artist myself. And you said something very important, that in the industry there also must be people from the continent. But I think it's not just that there are people from the continent, but it's also important that the people from the continent have a knowledge about the music. Because it doesn't make sense, yeah, to have people from the continent in the industry would have no clue about the music, don't have no clue about the history. That's one important thing I'd like to say. The other thing is Afro-pop. I still don't understand. What is it? I mean, because I'm an artist, and I would not like to call my music Afro-pop.
That's fine.
So I'm just wondering, what is it? You know, is it just you're just calling it Afro-pop because you're talking about popular music, because it's popular, everybody's like jumping on it, or why are you calling it Afro-pop?
Yes, because it's popular in the sense in Ghana, Afrobeats, for example. Most of the people now, when you listen on radio, that's pop music. That's the predominantly music that you hear on the streets, on the radio, in clubs. That's for me. I mean, what is pop music? What does it call pop music? Hip hop is now in Germany also considered pop music because that's what.
Okay, but what do you call, for example, Congolese music? Because Congolese music was quite
popular.
big.
It's still popular in Congo. Or
it's not just popular in Congo.
But it's popular music. A lot of people listen to it.
It's popular all over Africa. It was popular all over Africa.
Yeah, so it's pop music. It's popular music.
So you call it Afro-pop?
It's Afro-pop, yes, for me.
Well, I don't think so.
Yeah, and actually, the point
then,
is...
of course, like, what is pop music in general? You know, you can... It's a word that...
That's the problem that he was talking
That's exactly. We could go back to what he's saying.
because it's getting twisted, you know, it's like, what is it? You know, you cannot, I will not call Congolese music
I would still... but it's also not Congolese. There are different names to Congolese music.
No, what I'm saying
so
is
you can also call them the names they have.
No, what I'm saying is Congolese music, yeah, has been very, very popular in Africa, all over Africa, almost all over the world.
True.
If you hear the Afrobeat, what people call Afrobeat or Afropop now, they're using those elements, actually, of the guitars, the drum patterns, whatever, you know. But Congolese music or Congolese artists...
It's not popular in your country? It is popular.
No, but if I go somewhere and I say I make Congolese music, they will never say that I make Afropop. They'll be like, okay, this is African music, or this is too whatever, you know. I don't know. It's just like I'm also getting very frustrated as an artist, yeah, and with all these labels, you know, because I can't do the music that I want to just because some people, they are calling it Afropop, they're calling it Afro jazz, they're calling it whatever, you know, and I'm like, what the fuck? You know, what do you want? I'm an African. Since I'm an African, I do African music. No matter what it is, whether it's rock, jazz, blue, soul, I'm an African. I do African music.
No one denies that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and this is again like the limitation that labels have, as you were saying earlier.
Just to kind of give you, just put things at ease a little bit. It's catch-22, you know. It's like everybody wants their music to have identity. And as artists, we're also very precious about how we brand our music. So obviously, you don't want your music to be called Afro-pop or music from Congo or music from Mali or whatnot, just to have like one umbrella name. And that's why we now are suffering with this phrase called world music. Do you know what I mean? Which is already a problem in itself, you know what I mean? Because, you know, underneath that, it's like these are whole genres, proper, you know, developed genres that have been around for centuries and so on and so forth, you know. So it's catch-22. In one sense, you want to, you know, brand your music and give it like a name so that when people are looking for your music, they know what to find. But in another sense, it's like, how do we also come in a force, especially when it comes to popular music, pop music. I never understood, you know, what is and what isn't pop music, but you have to understand a lot of music that is now considered pop music also started as revolutionary music, as rebel music, as, you know, now people listen to Fela Kuti's music at banquets. All the corrupt ministers are dancing to, you know, fire go burn you, and they're drinking their champagne. It's like, this is just background music, you know. After a while, it doesn't even matter anymore. Do you know what I mean? So it's catch-22, and I understand your frustration, but I don't have the answers. But what do we do in terms of, in the days of Spotify and Deezer and iTunes, what do you do? Where do you place your music? Do you make your music harder to find? Do you create your own, when they ask you what genre is your music, do you go and write, you know, Congolese with a twist of Berlin from the 70s? Or like, what do you do? Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, this is the thing. How do you make yourself findable? If that's a word, you know?
I think we should take another question.
So actually, well, that's not going to be as heated as it was just before. I just wanted to add something about like the question, right? How African music is reshaping the European cultural landscape. I was just for about 3 weeks in Nigeria. I was there with an artist, so an artist from the diaspora. So she's European, but with a African background. And so we did a lot of TV, we did radios, we met a lot of producers, and we had always the same question. It's like, are you planning on releasing something in Nigeria? Are you not even Nigerian? And we're like, no. We're working on the European market. Our market is Germany, France, and the UK and the US. So this is what we're doing here is for our market. And they were like, wow, seriously? And we were like, this is how important you guys are. This is how important it is for not only artists from the diaspora, but for many artists to go there, meet the producer, meet the people from the industry there. And the very same thing I did right now, I was doing it 15 years ago in the US. So we were going in New York, we were doing it in LA, and we were meeting all the producers. And now, I'm pretty sure in the next 5 years, I'm going to spend a lot of time in Ghana and a lot of time in Nigeria. Yeah. I'm pretty sure about it. So that was what I wanted to say.
Absolutely. Just to add to, real quick, it's like, for most African artists in the diaspora, if you're not accepted, if you don't have your base in your home country, you haven't blown up, you know? And it's like now everybody's going back, you know, home to work with local producers, local musicians, and so on and so forth. But like you're saying, having a knowledge of the music, of the genre that you're coming from, to avoid the appropriation.
Exactly, and to keep ownership. Like you said, you know, it's important that we and all African people know about the industry, because there is the risk, exactly because right now it's under the radar and there is a lot of interest. There is also the risk of losing ownership, you know, and having a word about how this is like created and so on.
It's a difficult subject, because I feel like we haven't even touched on the impact of African music in the European landscapes and so on and so forth. Because we always get caught up in these little rabbit holes and things like that. But
Okay, so unfortunately, I think our time is up. Can we take one last question first? She was the last one, and then we go. She was
already 3 minutes over.
Okay. So unfortunately, it's not possible, but the speakers will be at the speakers lounge, like 15 minutes. So maybe you can approach us and discuss further there. Thank you very much for being with us, and just have a word with both of them.
Thank you.
Thank you.